If you've been a Christian long enough, there's no doubt that you've heard the term. One essence, three distinct persons. This is the basis of the important doctrine of the Trinity. But you may be saying, what the heck does this mean? A person constitutes an individual. For example, the fact that Socrates is a person and the fact that Aristotle is a person makes them not just distinct, but totally separate in nature. So if the Godhead consists of three different persons, shouldn't that mean that God is totally separate? To answer this question, we have to know what a person is, and where the idea or concept or definition of a person ultimately came from in the Trinitarian lens. The story begins in the 5th century AD with Nestorius. You may have heard of him. In claiming that Mary was not the God-bearer, Nestorius in turn separated the individual person of Christ's humanity from the divine person of his identity, hence causing division in Christ. Nestorius was highly condemned by St. Cyril of Alexandria, who showed up to the Council of Ephesus as a papal legate representing Pope St. Celestine I. At the council, Nestorius was officially condemned for heresy, and those who held to the heresy fitly called Nestorianism were in like manner condemned for their error and anathematized from the Catholic Church. Cut to Eutyches. Eutyches was a priest who, in hoping to take a step further against Nestorius, devised his own theological model for the person of Christ, which sought to condemn Nestorius's heretical views. While the intentions of Eutyches were pure, he would ultimately go too far in his condemnation of Nestorius, deriving his own heresy. He claimed that there was a time when the divine nature of Christ and the human nature of Christ were united yet still distinct. Yet, at some point, the human nature was dissolved and formed into the divine nature. This caused an even greater theological problem, since the mission of the Son is to save humanity, and Christ's human flesh is the instrument of his eternal priesthood, as is written in Hebrews chapter 7, verse 25. And Christ's eternal priesthood would no longer assist to a nature that no longer existed. The two controversies caused much confusion in the Christian church as to what a person was. In the midst of this, one Christian leader finally stood up, attempting to clear the noise of what a person was and addressing both controversies. The man who addressed this was Saint Anicius Boethius, a leader in Byzantium. I will read to you part of his letter against Nestorius and Eutyches. I should note before I continue, the English translation that I am using here from BibleHub.com, quote, "Since a person cannot exist apart from the nature, and since natures are either substances or accidents, and we see that a person cannot come into among accidents, for who can say there is a person of black or white or size? It therefore remains that a person properly applied to substances. But of substances, some are corporeal and others incorporeal, and of corporeals, some are living and others use the reverse. Of living substances, some are sensitive and others are insensitive. Of sensitive substances, some are rational and others irrational. Similarly, of incorporeal substances, some are rational, others the reverse, for instance, the animating spirits of beasts. But of rational substances, there is one which is immutable and impassible by nature, namely God, another which in virtue of its creation is mutable and passible, except in that case where grace of the impassible substance has transformed it to the unshaken impassibility which belongs to angels in the soul. Now, from all the definitions which have given it to that person cannot be affirmed of bodies which we have no life, for no one ever said that a stone had a person, nor yet of living things which lack sense, for there is neither any person or tree, neither finally of that which is bereft of mind and reason, For there is no person or horse or ox of other person who is dumb and universal live a life of sense alone. But we say that there is a person of man, of God, of all angels. Again, some substances are universal, others are particular. Universal terms are those which are predicated of individuals, as man, animal, stone, stock, and other things that are kind, either genera or species. The term man is applied to individual men, just as animal is to animals, and stone and stock, and individual stones and stocks. But individuals are terms never predicated of other things. As Cicero, Plato, this stone, which is of the statue of Achilles, was hewn, the piece of wood out of which this table was made. But in all these things, person cannot in any cause be applied to universals, but only to particulars and individuals. There is no person of a man, if animal or general, only the single person of Cicero, Plato, and other individual termed persons. Wherefore, if a person belongs to substances alone, and these rational, if any person is a substance existing not in universals, but in individuals, then we have the definition of a person, the individual substance of a rational nature. But some might raise an objection from St. Ignatius's definition of what a person is. After all, if a person is a substance, and a substance tends to denote something individual, would seem on paper as though his definition does not address the problem of a person being distinct from another person in terms of essence. It is here where we understand the distinction between universal and particulars as regard the substance of this teaching. In a genus, that is, the field or quality shared by a multitude of different creatures. For example, Cicero and Aristotle are both understood to be men, and therefore they both fall under the genus of mankind. We understand there to be two different particulars. Those are accidents and substance. Accidents are said to conform to the substance of an object. For example, the accidents of a tree are its bark, but the bark still conforms and subsists the form of the tree, that is, the stub. Other species fall under a genus whilst also subsisting of their own accord, as is the case with an angel. Angel is still an individual substance, yet it is still reducible to a genus. And in the same like manner, we understand the essence of God not to be a common genus, but to be a conceptual genus, wherein the substance of the Father is perfectly communicated to the Son. We say that under this definition, Son is an individual substance, subsisting on his own, still reducible to the genus of the divine essence. And for this reason, it is befitting to say that the Trinity can be called three persons. Trinity is a difficult topic to understand. As St. Augustine once said, many believed in the Trinity, but few could actually explain what it was. More Trinitarian heresies have grown in the last few years pertaining to the nature of Christ. It is the goal of my channel to further educate people who are watching this video about the nature of the Trinity and how to explain it to those outside of the faith. If you like what you see here, please continue to watch and make sure to leave a comment if you have any questions, which I'll be happy to answer.